Canada has placed a temporary cap on the number of international students. This is going to last for 2 years, and a reassessment of the same will be made in 2025. So let's take a look at what the changes are, how the changes will be put in place, and what has led to the changes in the international students intake in Canada. First of all, what does this entail? The Immigration Minister, Mark Miller, has decided that the number of international students who will be coming to Canada this year will be slashed by 35% overall. So in 2024 and the next year, the number of students who will be coming to Canada per year will be somewhere around 360,000 students, which is, as I pointed out, 35% less than what was seen in 2023. Secondly, the cap has been placed as per the provinces and the availability of accommodation and housing for students, or the housing in general for the Canadians in those provinces, which means that the cap will be placed on provinces on the number of students they can bring in. The cap will then be spread out through the provinces to the institutions. The provinces will be deciding which institution or institute or government university is, or public university rather, is allowed to take how many international students starting 22nd January 2024. For this now, the requirement for the students is that they need to submit an additional document to the IRCC, which is the agency that will give these students their student's permit. The additional document will be a letter or an assertion from the province that they have a clearance to join the institute in their province, which means the provinces will now have to put a mechanism in place to allow for these circulars or these letters that the students require to make a final submission to the IRCC. The deadline for that is 31st of March this year, by when the provinces will have to make this mechanism clear. So the additional document that the student will now be providing will include this letter from the province, giving them a go-ahead. Additionally, this was already done in December, once again, which in fact directly influences the intake of international students, is that the cost of living requirement, the amount of money that a student has to show and rather block for a year, will be increased from 10,000 Canadian dollars to over 20,000 Canadian dollars, which for an Indian student will roughly come to around 13 lakh rupees that they have to show in this particular GIC account, and which will be given to them in parts once they reach Canada for over 1 year. As far as how this is going to be panned out, we just explained to you the requirements and the manner in which the government in Canada, the federal government, has decided to act on the issue of international students. But the question is, why? When the Canadian side has been earning huge amounts of revenue, as well as the institutions also making money through the tuition fees. The Immigration Minister, first of all, on the face of it, says that the institutions, some of them, have not been providing the kind of education that is required of a Canadian institute, and have just been luring students to their institutes with the fact that many believe that they will be able to make it a path towards permanent residency here in Canada. Now, the other aspect that the Canadian government has really been facing, and because of which this decision has really taken place, is because of the housing crisis in Canada. The housing crisis has been such that the Trudeau government has been under intense pressure from the opposition. And since last year, late last year, there was anticipation that the fallout of this is largely going to be on the international students and the cutting down of numbers of international students. Institutions, though, believe that this is not a wise move, and that the housing crisis should have been dealt with by the government standalone. However, the government believes also here in Canada, and this is what Mark Miller has said, that the kind of support system that students, especially international students, require includes accommodation and the cost of living issues as well, that is food, and therefore this should be made clear to the student what the requirements are, and if those requirements are not fulfilled by the province or the institutions, then that intake needs to be put or arrested by the federal government. However, the government has said that they are going to reassess the situation 2 years later, that is in 2025, and then take a call on whether the cap needs to be removed or will go on as is. Now, this is because the government, on the other hand, is also trying to work on the housing crisis. Remember, at the moment, any sort of short leases are not allowed in many of the provinces in Canada, including in British Columbia. Moreover, the government is also encouraging the construction sector. In fact, as a form of incentive to the construction sector, it has been said that those involved in the construction sector, their PR request is also expected to be expedited. But the fallout on international students is clear as of now. The intake of international students from this year onwards in Canada is going to be slashed drastically by 35%.